them. Then others can always catch up on the recording. So now, like I said, I'm looking at initially, like I'm looking at two scenarios for BTC, the bullish scenario and the bearish scenario, right? For bigger plays. Right. So let's go back to the weekly starting. If you want to plot join your analysis, it's always good to start from the bigger time frames because that will give you a clear view of the bigger picture, right, of the markets, macro view of the markets. That's always important to start your analysis from the bigger time frame, right? So now starting with the bearish scenario, that's the one I've always been talking about, most especially on my page, right? So the first thing to look out for is this support and resistance that we have, SR level we have here, right? This is basically support, broke below, now retesting and retest pass. Now come to retest and resistance. The normal law says that if once support get broken, it becomes resistance and vice versa. Once resistance gets broken, it becomes support, right? So now this has become resistance because price has broken below it, right? So price is coming back to test it as resistance. Very simple, right? Now, um, that's one. And the second thing to look out for is this bearish order block, right? What a bearish order block means is the up candle, right, before a series of down candle that broke market structure to the downside. Still there. Hold on. Right. The fuck is going on? I used to. Shit. Alright, so let me just proceed. I'll send it as a recording. So this is the up candle. Before we had this down candle that broke market structure. This was the structure initially. Then this candles you see here broke the structure to the downside. So this is a bearish order block. For a bullish order block, it will be this down candle before a series of up candles that broke market structure. This was the structure. See, I had a series of candles that broke it to the outside. So if we're to bid this, we bid it around this area, something like this, right? See how the price came and bounced, but it didn't really add a significant bounce. But then it's respected this other block we had here. So that's the same scenario for what we have here. Right, here's a bearish weekly order block because we're on the weekly time frame. Right, so this is a bearish weekly order block, and you see when price traded into it, when price traded into this order block, it's rejected. The first rejection we had closed as a bearish engulfing. If you know candlestick patterns, you know this is a bearish engulfing. Basically, there was enough buying pressure to cover all of the. There was enough. Sorry, there was enough selling pressure to cover up all of the buying pressure we had here. Right, showing signs. That's another sign of weakness. So you see, we have one support and resistance SR level, and two weekly order block. Right. So if we should have a pullback, that is a down move, as fuel price should trade towards, let me use this one instead. So I feel price will trade towards this 25k area, anywhere around here. Why? Is because resistance, 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 breakouts, and like I said, explained before, once price breaks out of resistance, it automatically becomes support, right? And price would come and test this um new support before continuation. It doesn't happen all the time. I'm not saying every time it must come to test where it breaks out from, but most of the time it does come to respect the area. So now if we should have a rejection from me, if you have that pullback, the ideal pullback, I feel probably this is an area I'll be watching out for first, right? Then I'll, if price comes here, I'll watch for reactions before taking a long, right? So if it doesn't hold, if price doesn't hold this area, if it breaks below this area, another level I'm watching out for is, I'm looking out for rather, is here, right? Anywhere around here basically. Let me just use two lines. So anywhere around here basically is our support area, right? Anywhere around this level. Seller support here, deviated, came back over it, above it rather, before we had the continuation up. So this one area I'm looking for, right? So if we lose here, then I think next area will be 18k, right? Or probably first areas of concern will be this low setting here, that's 19k. So 19k, 18k will be levels I'll be watching for to see if we'll do some reversal. That's if this area doesn't hold, right? So that's for the bearish scenario. If it goes below here, then at that time we'll for other levels to work with when we get below here. For now, let's keep it within this range, right? So that's for the bearish scenario, right? So now let's talk about the bullish case. So if you observe, price has been basic for a couple of days. Price was quite choppy. This is H1 time frame. Price, I think at this level, basically throughout last week, price was choppy, right? So what I also observed was, if you go to the daily time frame, you see this um you'd see this there's a couple of swing failure patterns on the daily time frame. Let me highlight that out. So now, when I say swing failures, this is what I'm talking about. Price basically has failing to close below this low here. Each time it comes below it, it always goes back and close above it. This series of candles showed that, right, rather. So this was one thing I saw yesterday that made me to take the long rather. It made me take the long from somewhere around here, I'm not really sure. Right, and I took profit at this year. Right. So now I'm totally flat and watching. So I feel if we do, the only time this idea of this SFP swing failures will be wrong is if we have a daily close below this red line, right? That's when this idea will be validated. But for now, it's still valid, and I still feel maybe if we do get an up move relative, it should be somewhere, should trade towards somewhere around here, right? Because this is a bearish order block, the up candle for a series of down candle that block market structure. This is a bearish order block, so put a box on that to look something like this. So look like this. Alright, so probably you see price trade towards here, something. Right. If that, so I left one of my longs opened, targeting that area. If we do get that, so I left one long towards there. If we do get that bounce to that area, right? So that's for the bullish scenario, bigger picture. So you can just keep that in mind. So now let's, for day-to-day trades, let's map out our monthly and weekly levels and Monday's range. I don't take Monday's range as pretty much panned out yet, as I don't think both sides of the Monday's high and Monday's low has been taken out yet. So if you've been on the stream previously, you know how I map my ranges. I start from the monthly. So this monthly time frame, I'll pick the highs and the lows of previous months first, then the midpoints of previous months. So midpoint comes around 28,971. 28971. Okay, so that's the mid area. Let me make that a little bit so to stand out from the rest. Oops. All right, so those are monthly levels. We have the high, previous month's high, previous month's low, the mid area. All right, so let me do the weekly levels. Weekly candle was it's very small because of the chop right last week, so there wasn't really much price action. That's why the candle is basically almost like a doji. So let's map out the highs and lows of that. Let's do that in blue so to be identifiable. Alright, so that's last week's high, last week's low. Then the mid area comes in confluence with last month's low, so I won't be marking that out. So use last month's low as confluence. So that's last week's range for you. So now let's map out Monday's range. Try to keep this trend very short. So Monday's range, highs and low of Monday candle. So let me just do it with the Fibonacci too and leave it that way. So this Monday's high, Monday's low mid area of Monday. So now let's dial. We already have our 3 levels mapped out. So we can now use those levels to enter a trade, use it as targets, and also use it to figure out our invalidation point. So let's get to it. So now if you see, if you look at it now, confluence with the daily SFPs, daily swing failure I showed you earlier, this was another reason to get long. This was where I got long yesterday. This was previous, this last month's low. So this was last month late. When price came above here was when I longed. So if we check, let me quickly pull up the charts where I longed it yesterday. So I think it should be here. Okay, I think it should be above here. Okay. Alright, so if you observe this chart, this was where I told you on previous months low. Because why? So this has been key area in the past. Resistance, resistance, break above, break below, resistance, broke out from gradually up, then support, 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 resistance, break above, break below, resistance, 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 resistance before we had this mini rally up. They came back under it again, resistance, resistance. I think I shorted here and I posted. Then now it reclaimed again. So now this is key area. This is a very key area because we have a lot of a series of activities there in the past. So you know if best believe price gets above here, it should rally at least a little bit. So this is that's the reason why I took the long, right, from here, right. So initially my target was the high, the previous high. I think it was this or this. So if you are long here, ideally where to take profits will be the left. To look to the left, the highs that was at the left. So this was the first area of take profits. TP1, then TP2. Then you can you take the remaining one off at last week's high, which is this, right? So now what I'm looking at is I think fuck previous. Okay. So I'm looking at basically now is I cut all of my longs, right? So if price comes to the towards this area, towards Monday's high, if it holds, then probably you can look for long triggers for continuation. These eyes will be first targets. then probably take some off here, right? Then target here. Ignore the lines, they are not really straight, so just ignore them for now. But the whole idea is to know where to take profit, right? So when you when you enter a position, whether long or short, the where to look for TP areas will always better. It's always good to look at the left. The highs we have at the left. This is an high here, and this an high here. Whichever one you want to choose. And so if price comes here, watch reaction. If it holds, then you can look for long. But if it doesn't, if it starts to break below Monday's high, then I think that will be potential signals to get shorts and targets. And targets previous month's low as first target. Then this will be my second target, this low here. So you can just use the mid area of Monday, that is Monday's mid, to gauge. So this will be second target, right? You can leave some to year or year, whichever one you want to choose. So those are for intraday trades. This is a long scenario if it holds. But what I if price doesn't come towards it, sometimes price might front run you and not do what you want. So if price doesn't come towards there, I think this is a good area to get into a long. If price should reclaim this coming, there's a swing failure here. So if price can, if it doesn't come here first and it starts to go up, if it reclaims here, then it can, if it does something like this. Moments, please. So, all right, so if it does something like this, let's ignore my lines for now, but the important is to understand the idea behind. So if it does something like this, if it to out to reclaim here, then this will be your first objective. This will be your trigger. Above here will be your trigger, right? First objective it should be here. Then second one would be, let me zoom out. If this is a major objective actually, right? So you can take most profits here. If it starts to reclaim, this, starts to reclaim here as your trigger, then you target these eyes we have here, right? Target the highs we have here as first targets, right? Then this are second targets. So this is TP1, then TP2. That's if price should reclaim last week's high, right? Mind you, so there are two long scenarios. If it reclaims here, one, or if it comes draws a pullback here and holds here, then this will be a long trigger, right? To towards here, then here. The second one will be if it reclaims last week's high and can target 28K. Right. I think this area comes in confluence with this area I have here. Where is shit? I'm trying to look for the daily one I mapped out earlier. Alright, so it comes in confluence with this one. With this other block I mapped out here. Right, comes in confluence because this is also 28K area. So if you check, you see it's confluence with that. It's almost the same with that, right? So that's that. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if anybody is here who wants to ask question. I don't think anyone is here. So I'll just, okay, let me quickly do DXY. So we have 3 minutes left. Let me quickly do DXY. So for DXY, this was, so what I've been looking at for DXY. Let me just plot it again. This is the range I'm working with. This is the high here. And this the low here. Right, so it's still confidence with this. So I think basically price rallied from here. I was calling for 103s, I think previous weeks ago, so I think we had the rally up. So now I can't say for now if price has really claimed here because I think it's still too early to decide that. But this kind of some resistance, there's some sort of resistance here, right? Then into H1. So why I'm always using DXY to gauge my PTC entries is because, like I always explained, um, they work inversely. If this one is pumping, PTC will dump, and if money is going out of BTC, money is going out of BTC, then money is coming to dollar index, right? Just to make it simple, let me just put it that way, right? So if this one pumps, BTC dumps. If this one dumps, BTC pump. It doesn't happen exactly like that every time, and most of the times it works, right? So now, if I broke out of this mid range, but I still feel you have this obstacle to deal with, right? So if we can start to break above here, then I can now target this high, then this high here. So if this should happen, if this scenario, this long scenario should happen, then you know it's definitely going to see some downward movements, right? But on the other hand, if this should start to break down from here, right, then we can see some relief on PTC. So I don't know how far this will dump, right? For the same sort of levels to work with here. So I don't know how far it will dump. I'm not really concerned with how far it dumps. Right? I was need to time my BTC and probably some forex pairs. Right? So this is a level to contend with. If this should start to, if price starts to dump from here, then I see some rally relief on BTC. Or if the opposite happens, it starts to break above here and reclaim and hold above here, then first believe you see some more dump on BTC and Alts. Right, so those are my thoughts. I hope it's clear. I was in the stream here, and you can always you can always come back and watch it later, right? So, apologies for the um issues. I don't know why we had this couple of issues, but I apologize for that. So also subscribe to my channel, so whenever I want to do a live video, you get notified immediately, right? Let's I think we're at 80 subscribers now. Let's get to 50. We can get to 50, then 100, then that's then more from there. We'll start little by little. Alright, so that's everything for today. Apologies for the issues. I'll try to work on them next week.